Trump administration expresses deep concern over attacks on Christians in Nigeria. On October 1, 2025, the Trump administration, through the U.S. State Department, publicly expressed deep concern regarding the escalating violence against Christians and other vulnerable groups in Nigeria. This statement, issued in response to inquiries from Newsweek, highlights ongoing threats from terrorist organizations such as Boko Haram and ISIS West Africa, particularly in northern Nigeria. The administration has urged the Nigerian government to enhance protections for affected communities and align its laws with commitments to religious freedom. This development comes amid renewed congressional pressure to redesignate Nigeria as a country of particular concern, CPC, under the International Religious Freedom Act, a status it held during Trump's first term, but lost under the Biden administration. The crisis has drawn international attention, including from comedian Bill Maher, and underscores broader debates on religious persecution, government accountability, and U.S. foreign policy priorities. Nigeria, Africa's most populous nation, has faced persistent sectarian violence for over a decade, with Christians in the northern and central regions bearing a disproportionate burden. Islamist extremist groups like Boko Haram and ISIS West Africa, along with Fulani herdsmen militants, have been implicated in targeted attacks on Christian communities, including villages, churches, and schools. These assaults often involve mass killings, kidnappings, arson, and forced displacement. Key statistics illustrate the severity. According to Open Doors World Watch List 2025, Nigeria ranks 7th globally as the most dangerous place for Christians, with more faith-related killings occurring there than in the rest of the world combined. In 2024 alone, approximately 3,100 Christians were murdered and 2,830 kidnapped, per the same report. A 2025 report from Intersociety estimates an average of 30 Christians killed daily, totaling over 7,000 for the year so far. Since 2009, jihadist violence has claimed around 150,000 lives and displaced over 16 million people across sub-Saharan Africa, with Nigeria as a focal point. The violence is concentrated in the Middle Belt and northern states, where Christian farming communities clash with Muslim Fulani herders over resources, exacerbated by climate change and ethnic tensions. However, advocacy groups argue the attacks are religiously motivated, with militants imposing Sharia law and targeting symbols of Christianity. Recent incidents include the July 2025 massacre of 27 Christians in Bindi Tahos village, where victims were burned alive in a church, and the stoning of a Christian student for professing her faith. The Nigerian Catholic Bishops' Conference has decried the government's inaction, noting in March 2025 that northern states enforcing Sharia law ordered the closure of Christian schools during Ramadan, violating the secular constitution. Archbishop Ignatius Kigama of Abuja described the insecurity as a haunting national crisis. The State Department's response, provided to Newsweek on October 1, 2025, states, "The United States remains deeply concerned about the levels of violence against Christians and members of other groups in Nigeria, including the threats posed by terrorist groups like Boko Haram and ISIS West Africa in northern Nigeria. We have raised these issues with the Nigerian government at the highest levels. The Nigerian government must more effectively address the repeated attacks against vulnerable communities and ensure that its laws throughout the country are consistent with its commitment to religious freedom." This marks a continuation of the administration's emphasis on religious freedom as a moral and national security imperative, echoing President Trump's earlier condemnations. In August 2025, the White House similarly denounced horrific violence against Christians in Nigeria and the Democratic Republic of Congo, pledging collaboration with international partners. The statement follows comedian Bill Maher's September 2025 HBO remarks labeling the killings as a systematic genocide attempt, which amplified global awareness. On X, formerly Twitter, The statement garnered immediate attention, with Sahara reporters posting a link to their coverage on October 2, 2025, receiving over 78 likes and 33 reposts. Advocacy accounts like IPOB, Liverpool Central, and Biafra-related groups shared headlines, framing it within calls for greater autonomy in southeastern Nigeria. During Trump's first term, 2017-2021, the U.S. designated Nigeria as a CPC in December 2020, citing systematic, ongoing, egregious religious freedom violations. This led to diplomatic pressure, but no major sanctions. In 2018, Trump directly confronted Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari about Christian murders during a White House meeting, a move praised by some Christian leaders but criticized by Muslim advocacy groups as inflammatory. The Biden administration removed Nigeria from the CPC list in November 2021, attributing violence to climate-driven resource conflicts rather than religious persecution, a decision decried as a dereliction of moral responsibility by critics. FOIA requests revealed internal concerns about government complicity, yet no action followed. With Trump's return, advocates like the International Coalition Against Christian Genocide in Nigeria, ICAC-GEN, have petitioned Secretary of State Marco Rubio to reinstate the CPC status, praising Trump's prior record. Nigeria's Ministry of Foreign Affairs has rejected claims of targeted religious killings, calling them misinformation that plays into the hands of terrorists by fostering division. In March 2025, it emphasized that violence affects all faiths, with Muslims and non-religious individuals also victimized. Former Senator Shehu Sani echoed this on Channels Television, noting bandits attack churches and mosques indiscriminately. U.S. lawmakers, including Representatives Chris Smith, RNJ, and Senator Ted Cruz, RTX, have pushed legislation like the Nigeria Christian Persecution Act to mandate CPC redesignation and condition aid on progress. The U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops and groups like International Christian Concern, ICC, have called for prayers and sanctions. On X, Senator Cruz highlighted the bill's aim to counter forced submission to Sharia law, garnering 747 likes. Catholic Arena reported on the bishop's outcry with 1,189 likes, emphasizing daily kidnappings and killings. Author Raymond Ibrahim shared a video warning of a silent slaughter, viewed over 13,000 times. Critics within Nigeria, including some pastors, face accusations of hypocrisy for prioritizing international issues over local advocacy. Broader X discourse reflects frustration with government inaction, with users like Our Favonline Doc, decrying silence from religious leaders. The Trump administration's statement signals a potential pivot toward stronger U.S. intervention, possibly including aid restrictions or multilateral pressure. It highlights tensions between viewing the violence as religiously driven versus multifaceted, e.g., ethnic, economic. Failure to act risks emboldening extremists and straining U.S.-Nigeria relations, especially amid economic ties. Recommendations include immediate U.S. actions, reinstate CPC status, and impose targeted sanctions on complicit officials. Nigerian reforms: enhance security in vulnerable areas, prosecute perpetrators, and address Sharia enforcement inconsistencies. International collaboration: partner with the UN and African Union for monitoring and humanitarian aid. Monitoring, track implementation via annual reports from US CIRF and NGOs. This crisis demands urgent, unified response to prevent further loss of life and uphold global religious freedoms. Family Writers, Press International.